conqueror or liberator, builder or bully? Well, you'll have to watch this episode of Meet the Conquerors to find out about the one and only Cyrus the Great. Hello, and welcome to this series where we talk about all kinds of topics related to the ancient world. Today we will be talking about Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire, which is also known as the Persian Empire. Let's get started. So first of all, let's address a question that many of you might have before watching this video, and that is, why is Cyrus the Great considered the founder of Persia? And is it correct to call his empire Persian? Well, the short answer to both of these questions is yes, but it's more complex than it seems. You see, the region that we today call Iran used to be called Persia by the Greeks. It was originally inhabited by a group of people called Medians. But in the 7th century BCE, another group of Iranian people called Persians took over, and they established the Achaemenid Empire. And since the Greeks could not pronounce Achaemenid, they just called them Persians, and thus the name stuck. So yes, the Achaemenid Empire was technically Persian. But it was also Median and other groups as well, because it encompassed quite a large part of Western Asia. Anyway, I hope this little explanation helped. If not, then there are entire videos available on this topic if you want to check them out. With that being said, let's go back to Cyrus the Great. He was the king of the Achaemenid Empire, which at its greatest extent included regions such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and parts of the Arabian Peninsula. He is known for defeating the last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire and conquering all of Mesopotamia. Cyrus is often regarded as the founder of the Persian Empire, although it should be noted that his empire would continue with several other rulers after him. He reigned from c. 600 to 530 BCE, so during the Late Iron Age and during the time period that we call the Neo-Assyrian Empire. He was born in the city of Anshan, which is located in modern-day Iran. We don't know much about his early life, but he succeeded his father, Cambyses I, upon his death. Cyrus was probably the greatest military leader of his time. He led his army using chariots and cavalry, and his tactics were very similar to those of the Assyrians. Cyrus was also the first ruler to use the royal road for communication, which connected Susa, his capital, with other parts of the empire. This allowed for the quick exchange of goods and resources throughout his territory. One of his most notable military victories was the conquest of Babylon. As mentioned earlier, Cyrus conquered all of Mesopotamia, including the great city of Babylon. This was a significant achievement, as Babylon had been one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. In fact, it's probably best known for the Hanging Gardens, which are considered one of the ancient world's 7 wonders. But the Babylonian king Nabonidus didn't really care about gardening. Instead, he preferred to hang around with his favorite wife, Nitocris, and party hard in Tama. Tama was a small city located in northwestern Arabia, and it was here that Nabonidus spent most of his time, instead of ruling over his great empire. Now, this doesn't mean that Babylonia became weak while Nebuchadnezzar was away, but it certainly made it easier for Cyrus to conquer. He was able to take advantage of the king's absence and defeat the Babylonians. When Cyrus conquered Babylon, the locals welcomed him as a liberator. Why is that? Well, you see, Nabonidus had made some enemies during his reign. When he moved to Tama, he left his son Belshazzar in charge of the kingdom. Belshazzar had been partying a little too hard, and he annoyed many of the local elites by confiscating their property. When Cyrus marched on Babylon, the elites were happy to see him come and open up their gates to him without even fighting. Cyrus did, however, have to fight the Babylonians outside of the city walls, at a place called Opis, and he defeated them there. Once Babylon fell into his hands, he allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, which had been destroyed by the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar II. This act of religious tolerance made him very popular among the Jews. He also issued the Cyrus Cylinder, which is considered the first human rights charter. It proclaimed religious freedom for all subjects of the empire, and it even allowed the Jews to return to their homeland and rebuild their temple. One thing to keep in mind about Cyrus is that he liked to see himself as a champion of the weak and a liberator of the oppressed. That's why the Jews saw him as a liberator, as did the Babylonians, who suffered under Nabonidus and Belshazzar's rule. He also took down the Assyrian Empire and freed the Anatolian peoples from their harsh rule. This is why some historians argue that Cyrus wasn't a conqueror, but a liberator. In fact, the way Cyrus treated the nations that he conquered was revolutionary. He didn't enslave them. nor did he force them to abandon their religion or culture. Instead, he was tolerant of other religions and allowed the conquered peoples to keep their traditions. He even appointed some non-Persians to influential positions within his administration. For example, he appointed a Jew named Ezra as the head of the Jewish colony in Jerusalem. This shows us that Cyrus was not only a great military leader, but also an effective administrator and politician. The secret behind his success was that he wasn't interested in exploiting the conquered nations. Instead, he was interested in enriching and developing his empire. He encouraged trade and industry and built roads and infrastructure throughout his vast domain. This made the empire prosperous and stable, which allowed Cyrus to focus on military campaigns rather than putting down rebellions. He also implemented a system of satraps, which were governors who ruled over the provinces in his empire. Each satrap had a seal and a unique stamp that bore the image of Cyrus. These seals were used to authenticate documents and ensure that taxes were paid on time. This system of governance was very effective and allowed the empire to function smoothly, even though it was so vast. In terms of military expansion, Cyrus continued to expand his empire throughout his reign. He conquered Lydia, Media, and several other small kingdoms in the region. He was also the first Persian king to use the title Shohanshah, which means King of Kings. This title was used by all subsequent Persian kings until the Muslim conquest of Persia in the 7th century CE. Cyrus was also responsible for the construction of the Royal Road, which was a road that stretched from Susa to Sardis. The Royal Road was 1,677 miles long, and it took about 3 weeks to travel. It was important because it allowed for the quick exchange of goods and resources throughout the empire. It also helped to keep the provinces connected to the central government. Cyrus also built a number of other infrastructure projects throughout his reign, such as palaces and temples. He built a palace at Susa that was over 1,000 rooms, and it was decorated with beautiful artwork. He also built a temple at Pasargadae that was dedicated to the god Ahura Mazda. Cyrus was also responsible for the establishment of several cities throughout his empire. He founded the city of Persepolis, which became the new capital of the empire. He also founded the city of Susa, which became one of the most important cities in the empire. Finally, Cyrus was responsible for the codification of many of the laws and customs of the empire. He established a legal system that was based on the laws of the Medes and Persians, and he also established a number of customs and traditions that were followed throughout the empire. Unfortunately, Cyrus the Great died in 530 BCE during a military campaign against the Massagetæ people. He was succeeded by his son, Cambyses II, who continued his father's legacy of military expansion and religious tolerance. Despite his short reign, Cyrus left a lasting legacy on the ancient world. His policies of religious tolerance and non-interference in local customs made him very popular among his subjects, and he is still revered as a hero in many parts of the Middle East. His empire was the first to span from Western Asia to Eastern Europe, and it laid the foundation for future empires, such as the Hellenistic and Roman empires. Cyrus was also an inspiration for later conquerors such as Alexander the Great, who admired Cyrus and even kept a copy of the Cyrus Cylinder in his personal quarters. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It helps out a lot. Subscribe for more content. Thanks again and see you next time.